I do theater, but apparently projection's harder when you're on the water. Okay. As I was saying, my name is Jared Zeman. I'm the Assistant Director at the Marblehead Museum. Welcome to our first harbor history tour of the year with our fantastic hostess, Bette Hunt. Before we begin, I just want to thank the sponsor of our cruise tonight, which is the Sal Satori School here in Marblehead. We're honored to have the director of the school, James Ashton, with us here. And James is going to just take a moment to tell us a little bit about Sal Satori and some of the experiences that you can have there. So,
thank you. Never heard of it. Thank you, Jared. Very briefly, we're delighted to be partnering with the Marblehead Museum this evening for this fabulous cruise. We are Sal Satori, 3 fabulous captains and instructors. We're Marblehead based. We run adult sailing instruction from beginner to advanced coastal cruising here in Marblehead. We also do charters from wine and cheese sunset cruises to full day charters on boats from 22 to 42 feet. So if you're looking to learn or just go out and have some wine and cheese out on Salem Sound, check us out. Sal Satori, we have postcards right here. So thanks and enjoy your evening.
And thank you, James, for your generous support. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to our fabulous hostess, Bette Hunt, and we'll get things started.
I can also serve some drinks if it wants me to get out there.
I don't lean high, I only lean low. Don't you think they'd have put palm trees on Atlantic Avenue instead of putting one they've been putting up there so damn hot? Crying out loud. Okay, what we're going to do tonight is have a lovely run around the harbor. And look at it, isn't it gorgeous? And finally there's some air and you can enjoy it. Look at all the boats. It's wonderful. Absolutely beautiful. Marblehead was settled in 1629, part of Salem. And it was settled for one purpose, fishing. And for about 190 years we fished. And so a lot of the money that came into Marblehead before the Revolutionary War was due to the fishing industry. So anytime you want to set off, Capitan, we can go. Okay? We're heading up harbor. This is a wharf we're standing at right now. It was set up as a public landing in 1662. We go back a few years. It's older than I am. And that's saying a lot. What I was thinking of today with all the boats in the harbor and how glorious it is, you know what I would love to have seen? Marblehead Harbor in the years leading up to the Revolution. Let's pick out 1762. There were wharves all along this side of the harbor. Wharves and warehouses. Millions and millions of dollars were made by the trade between salt cod and the European market. So the harbor was full from time to time with not only the fishing fleet, but also the merchant ships that came from Europe. And guess where we got our salt to salt the fish? Portugal. This is salty water, but it's not salty enough to do fish. So picture Marblehead with Jeremiah Lee, Robert Hooper, Thomas Pedrick, Thomas Roby, all hauling in money with great big merchant ships coming in with things from Europe, besides salt from Portugal, wine, canary wine, red wine, silk, wool, linen, hardware, glass, you name it, they brought it in the vessels. And Marblehead became a very wealthy town at the outbreak of the Revolution. So what we're going to do is go up the harbor, go across, and come down the next side and return here. If you have any questions along the line, ask me, and I'll try to act smart. And it's the first public park in Marblehead, 1877. You know something funny? Years ago I was doing a walk-in tour for a woman who had a tour company. And we were standing on a piece of ledge downtown, and she said to me, "There are a lot of rocks and walls in Marblehead. Where do you get your stone?" And I'm not, like, from places like that. Remember now, Abbott Hall? Talk about, ugh. The cornerstone for that building was laid in 1876, the year of our centennial. And we had that huge first fire of the shoe industry, 1877. They never stopped building. They kept on building Abbott Hall, which I think is a remarkable thing to do. And there she is, recently restored and absolutely beautiful. This was a boatyard when I was a kid. Columbus came. No. Before we started on this tour, I asked the harbor master about how many boats are there now in Marblehead Harbor. 1,492. And there are 1,200 in Salem Harbor. They're Marblehead boats. There's a 20-year wait for mooring here. In Salem, the wait is only 3 years. Okay? Now we're beginning to get up toward the warmer, earlier part of town, so to speak, and perfectly beautiful. Because one of the things I want you to do, if you ever go to Marblehead to walk around, there are no old buildings along the waterfront, because it was waterfront property and it was commercial. No living. And what fisherman wants to sit and look at the water? He's fought that damn water the whole of his life, and he doesn't want to go look at it when he doesn't have to. Hello. There was a yacht designer by the name of Starling Burgess. His father was Ned Burgess, who designed America's Cup Defenders. Starling liked doing yachts too, but he figured if you're rich enough to have a yacht, maybe you'd like to have your own plane. So he started making them. The factory was down on Little Harbor, Gashouse Beach. And do you know what those damn things were made out of? Wood, fabric, and wire. It's like going up in a kite. Can you imagine? Wood, fabric, and wire. But they were successful because what happened was the British ordered 30 of Starling Burgess's planes when the years prior to World War I, well, when World War I broke out. And up from 1900 to about the 1920s, he was a big maker of airplanes. He then got into designing automobiles with Buckminster Fuller, and I don't know what the hell all else he did. But this is where the Hotel Rockmere was. Are you making notes? There'll be a pop quiz at the end of this. There's a tombolo, and what it is, it's a bar made of rock, sand, whatever. And in this case, it was used as a causeway. The Indians used to use it at low tide to walk over to the neck. The causeway has been built up from the 17th century from time to time, and now it's more crossable. I don't know if they still do. Does anybody here live on Marblehead Neck? Because they close it off, or they used to. They close it off when there's going to be a bad storm, so you can't come off or go over. The fire department puts a truck over there and leaves it. I can remember during the war that there was a Coast Guard auxiliary man that would not let you across the harbor or across the neck causeway without the proper identification. Now we're up. There's Divo right over there where that bunch of rocks is. That is also one of the town forts, believe it or not. It was fortified in the war, the Civil War for the first time, and then it was fortified again, garrisoned again in the Spanish-American War, and it's now just nothing. You never know it was there. But it was Cow Fort, or it's at the end of Boobier Road is where it is. Now you can see the causeway going across. So now you can see the causeway going over the neck. At the end of this inn is Riverhead Beach. Believe it or not, there was a stream coming from the Gulfway area over this way, and it was called Riverhead Beach, and that's where the floats are stored in the wintertime. Marblehead Neck. Okay, let's go back to the fires of the... These large houses, of course, were initially, many of them, summer houses, and there was no heat in them. Their Irish maids would come, and they would be picked up. I love it. The Irish maids who lived over here. There was a Catholic church on the Marblehead, and they get picked up in a cart, and brought over to Mass on Sunday mornings. In the center part of the neck is an Audubon bird sanctuary. It was great for migratory birds, if you want to see them. I don't know how good it is now with all the people around and pedestrians and stuff disturbing the birds, but it was really great when I was a kid. For a protege. He was a pianist, and so the living room in the house has a little, want a better term, a stage at the end. He was supposed to, give little performances. He performed, but not to her liking, I guess. And so she turned the house over to him and left it there. It's a beautiful building, beautiful. Also lived over here, was Eugene O'Neill. He lived over here for a while. And then we have Lydia Pinkham's castle. Lydia Pinkham had a factory in Lynn, and it was she made a compound that was pure alcohol, but she guaranteed a baby in every bottle, and so she got the money enough to build that castle over here, which is quite nice. It's on the other side of the neck.
Castle Rock?
When I was a kid, there was the churn. It's not there anymore. It was a place in the rocks, and the water would come in and shoot up into the air. But it's all changed now. It's filled in, the water's too high, and it doesn't show. The biggest boats belong to the Eastern, and these were the second biggest boats. This is the story that we're told. But look at the lovely houses close to the water here. And they're in the leeward side of the neck, so you don't get too much damage from storms. It says here. One of the things I love about Marblehead Harbor is there are not all that many stink pots. That's a powerboat in Marblehead vernacular. There are an awful lot of sailboats. If you looked at the television on this Henri storm that was coming on, Cohasset, great big marinas were all stink pots. They're not cheap, but they're stink pots. Terrible. I do have a tendency to editorialize. There was a lighthouse put out on Lighthouse Point, and it was a very pretty one. It was just delightful. But it got to be not big enough. The first lighthouse keeper was Ezekiel Darling, for whom Darling Street is named. He had fought in the War of 1812, and he had been wounded, and as he called the word damaged, but he was still able to function, so he wouldn't take a pension. Isn't that amazing? He became my first lighthouse keeper. And the second one was a woman, Jane Martin. And the lighthouse was lit from oil. And I think the oil house is still there. I'll try to find it for you. It's a little brick building. Now, of course, this one dates from 1895. And one of the things I couldn't think of during the war, I was a kid in the Second World War, I couldn't remember, was the lighthouse lit during the war? It wasn't. It was shut off. It was lit once the war was over. Because there are at least four buildings on the neck that are bomb-proof, shatterproof, lookout tower things, because we were wondering how we might be vulnerable to possibly a U-boat or some other kind of distress. Oh, there's a plane flying. This area is sailing every day. Doesn't that look wonderful, as opposed to being in a stink pot? I'm going to get hit sometime, I really am. I'm just going to get smashed. The fort saved, as I said earlier, the Constitution, supposedly. There was no ammunition on the fort, but they didn't know that. It's been worked on the 17th century, 18th century. The last garrison that was there was in the Spanish-American War. It belonged to the government, and eventually it gets given to Marblehead, and it's been a park ever since. It's a very popular one at that. There was a sycamore maple tree, a great big old thing on the fort, And in one of the storms, it was in bad condition. One of the storms really did a number on it, so they took it down. And you should see what has been made from that tree. Artisans have made bowls, vases, sculptures from that tree with those beautiful graining and there's a display at the Marblehead Arts Association. Eventually the pieces will be auctioned off, and it's beautiful stuff that they were made from.